Hey everybody, it's Mandy. This episode of the MaeMaeTown podcast is going to be a little bit different from what we usually do on the podcast. Usually Neo is with me, but today it is just going to be me. This is just going to be a sort of special bonus episode where we're just going to have a one-on-one intimate conversation. This is not being live streamed. There is no chat, so it's just me and my mic and my bedroom. The reason why I wanted to sit down and make this episode is because this week we unfortunately lost Liam Payne, who was a member of One Direction. For me personally, One Direction means a lot, and I have a very strong connection with their music, with them as a band, and I basically grew up with them. So this loss has really hit me hard and hit a lot of people really hard. And I just wanted to kind of dedicate an episode to them and to the fans that are also kind of going through it right now. And I just wanted to just chat about it and check in because we've had a really rough time, like just in general with the hurricanes, and in Georgia we had a lab explosion that was really scary. And so I just wanted to kind of sit down and do a check-in and also just share my, my thoughts and my feelings on the loss of Liam and just how I'm feeling, if that's okay with you guys. I will give a fair warning. This episode will get emotional. I've been crying quite a bit the past few days, just really seeing other people's, pain and kind of sitting with my own grief in a way. And for those of you who aren't into One Direction, that aren't into the whole fandom concept, to you it's probably gonna seem weird, but I hope that after this episode you'll kind of see where I'm coming from. And this episode will be edited at points because when I get emotional, I just like my brain is all over the place and I would like to consolidate my thoughts and feelings a little bit better. But basically, if you've been on social media, then you've probably seen it. We unfortunately and tragically lost Liam Payne, who was a former member of One Direction, the insanely massive boy band. If you don't know who One Direction is, just go to Spotify. I implore you to listen to their songs because their music is so amazing. Like, they had some of the best writers on their team, and I've been listening to their albums again the past couple days and just remembering how joyful I feel when I listen to their music. And One Direction is one of those eras where like you kind of just had to be there to understand what it means and what it meant to people. When I was younger, I was into the latest boy band. I was a huge Jonas Brothers fan, and then I was a huge One Direction fan. And I was absolutely a part of both of those fandoms. But there's this term that people are using called fangirls or fanboys. And it's basically somebody who's like completely invested in a group to the point where like they make it their whole personality. They're writing fan fictions, they're running fan pages after school. At least that's more specifically to like when One Direction was big. Or maybe they weren't in school. I don't know. Maybe they were full grown adults, which that's also a thing. But I wouldn't consider myself to be like a fangirl because I don't feel like what's the word? I don't believe that I deserve the honor of being called a fangirl because I never wrote fan fiction. I never ran a fan page or anything like that, but I was at every tour, almost every tour for One Direction. I think my last concert was 2014. And I think that was the, whatever the tour was after 4, when 4 came out, which I think that might be my favorite album, but it's honestly really hard to choose. So yeah, I wouldn't consider myself to be like a fangirl, but I was heavily invested in the forming of One Direction, their rise to fame. I supported them in whatever way possible I could at the time at my age. My dad was so sweet to buy me basically any boy band concert tickets that I wanted, and I'm very blessed and grateful to have been able to experience that. And it's so hard to explain if you never experienced it yourself and if you weren't at the right age. I feel like a lot of this was so magical because we were at the right age and we were in a stage in life where we were very vulnerable and we wanted to feel accepted and we wanted to feel safe, right? When you're 13 and 14, you're going through so much emotional turmoil, whether that's at school or at home with family members. And you just want to feel safe. And music is that for a lot of people. And I know that like a lot of people kind of scoff at like teenage girls being into boy bands or boy artists, like Justin Bieber or BTS, like even now, it's the same concept where people kind of roll their eyes like, oh, it's so stupid, like they're only into them because of their looks. And, they put these boy bands together because they look good, right? So that's a huge part of it. But I think at its core, when I look back as an adult, it was the music, it was their personalities, it was the vibe that they created and the sort of lore that they created for themselves. Because if you look into One Direction, there's a lot of lore there. And I'm certainly not an expert on One Direction lore, but I did watch all of their YouTube videos when they were putting those out during X Factor, and they had a tour DVD that came out. They made a lot of content back in the day, and I ate all of that up. I ate every single bit up. Same with the Jonas Brothers. The Jonas Brothers were big. They first premiered on Disney for year 3000 in 2007, I think, which I was like 13, 14. So perfect age for that again. I was the perfect age for the Jonas Brothers, and then for One Direction, I was still in high school when they were like touring and popping off. Yeah, I was eating all that up, dude. I loved it. And back then it was so iconic on YouTube. The like the poor quality of videos, like it was a vibe, you know what I mean? And just like with anything else in the early 2000s, it's like you had to be there to really understand like how magical and joyful it felt, right? Or how funny it was, right? It's all contextual. And I think a lot of people right now, especially after, the loss of Liam Payne, I think a lot of people are grieving sort of their inner child. And I certainly have been feeling that this week. And, when you're an adult and you lose things like that, it kind of forces you to confront like, how did I feel when I was that age? What was I going through? And how did this person or this band get me through that? And then you have to sit with all those feelings again, and it all just comes like flooding back, right? And I think that's why a lot of people are, just crying, and they can't stop crying because it's like all coming out at once, right? And there's just another layer of like, you feel so sad for the family and you feel so sad for the band members who they might not have even spoken to this person for years. I know that Liam was going through a lot before he passed and right up until he passed. And as someone who is familiar with, with dealing with addicts, you have to just like at some point throw in the towel because you've spent every last amount of energy that you have to save this person, and some people don't want to be saved. And that is such a tragic feeling that you did everything that you could, but also you like feeling like you didn't because it didn't save them. You know what I mean? And I know a lot of people are feeling that, especially people that have, maybe said not so nice things about him online, going back and deleting their videos, and people close to him have said, not great things about him. And I can't even imagine how they felt. I think his ex-girlfriend came out with some stuff about him just a few days ago, and he just passed on the 16th. And I just like really hope that she has a lot of support around her, because it's not her fault. It's nobody's fault to come forward with information about somebody where they felt like they were in danger, or they were that person was putting other people in danger. You know what I mean? So I've felt so much pain for her and for his family members and for the band members and everyone that had a close relationship with him. It's easy to feel like with celebrity deaths that, well, we didn't know them, so why should we feel so much grief and mourn these people when we never would have met them in our lifetime? And maybe some people did meet, those people like once. And it's like, they're not going to remember you, but you also don't know that for sure, right? You don't know if you've made any sort of an impact on those people's lives. Like, you just don't know. And I do think that it's perfectly normal to grieve and mourn for celebrities who have passed, especially if that person or that band or that actor has had an impact on you and you've had a connection with them somehow that has changed the course of your life or has formed your identity, your personality, your sense of humor. Those are all incredibly valid things to mourn. And I think that I've been going through that this week. Oh, and I actually brought tissues today. Unlike my Twitch streams, I actually brought them today because it's been like on and off all week. And it kind of feels like it piles up sometimes, doesn't it? Especially this year. This year has been so fucking crazy, and excuse my language, but it's been so fucking crazy. And it almost feels like, when is it going to stop? And if I'm feeling that way and I'm not in the public eye, imagine how those people are feeling. Imagine feeling that way and people are telling you to die. You know what I mean? So it's just tough, man. And I think we all need to be gentler with each other. More gentle, I don't know what the right word is. We need to be kinder to each other, even celebrities. Because they're people. I know I know people say, oh, they're people too, like as a joke, but they are. They're people who go to bed at night and think, is it even worth it for me to keep going? Everybody hates me. My family hates me, Like, I can't even imagine what those people are going through. And I know it's like, well, they don't have anything to complain about because they have all the money in the world. They can, get a hotel room without even paying for it because they're just who they are, right? They can get all these things because they are famous. And I'm sure those things are nice, but you also have to think like, it's never enough, right? And we don't know that because we don't live that life, right? Like, imagine you can get anything that you want at any time of day. Enough would never be enough. That's why so many celebrities get into drugs, because no drug is enough, right? That's why so many celebrities die from overdoses, because they keep chasing a high. They keep trying to feel something or nothing at all because they just don't want to feel anything anymore. And I obviously don't know what happened with Liam. I can only guess based on my experiences with addicts and just forming my own opinion as a human with a brain, as a human with mental illness. I can only form my own opinion. And I think he just got to the point where enough was enough. And I don't know. I just hope that he finally feels peace wherever he is. And I don't know where that is. I don't know. But it's just so sad. And it's so tragic. And my heart just hurts for him and for his family and for, like I said, all the people that are affected by this, all the fans that I've seen. I've seen thousands of videos of fans just sobbing, crying over the loss of some people, not even the loss of him, because he has his own controversy that's very complicated for people, and it's complicated for me as well. But because he's a part of this incredible thing that meant so much to so many people and still does, there is an insane amount of mourning happening right now. And I don't know when that's going to subside. For me, I can't say when, it's going to subside. I feel like it's going to be drawn out because, just so many people are affected by this. I just wanted to basically come on here and just check in and talk to people about, how I'm feeling, because I feel that I tend to keep things bottled up or to myself, and I don't want to do that anymore. I think it's important to be transparent about grief and about just what's going on in the world and talking about it and talking it through, because we all feel so lonely. We live in a very lonely society, and we just need to talk more. We need to be more open about what we're dealing with, and I think it feels better when we talk about it, But I just have the best memories when it comes to One Direction. I saw their very first US tour, the Up All Night tour. And, I had been to plenty of Jonas Brothers concerts from middle school to high school. Even in after, I went and saw them last year, and they are even more phenomenal than they ever were. I mean, they're older, so the vibe is different, but musically and technically, they are so mature and just so amazing. But anyways, I had been to the Jonas Brothers concert. Obviously, they were a phenomenon in themselves. The fans went nuts for them. When they came out, the screams were just crazy, right? When I saw One Direction for the first time, their first tour, right? When they came out singing a song, and the screams were so high and so loud that I never knew what song it was. I didn't find out what song it was till years later. And it's because they didn't put that song on their album. They released it 3 or 4 years ago. And so I never knew because I couldn't hear it. The energy in that room when they first came out on stage, it was nothing I've ever experienced before. And it's nothing that I've ever experienced since. And it's just crazy, right? It's crazy how a handful of people can have that effect. And like I said, I saw the Jonas Brothers for the first tour. First time, right? Not their very first tour, because they were playing very small crowds for a while before Disney picked them up and they started doing stadium tours and all that stuff. But crazy, but not as crazy as One Direction. And there's, like I said before, there's so much lore when it comes to One Direction. So when they were on the X Factor and they were getting voted on, every week, they were putting out little video diaries on YouTube, and they were, just sitting together, answering questions from fans, and they started creating all of these sort of catchphrases. And when I tell you those catchphrases became my whole personality, I was insufferable in high school, in middle school. I was just insufferable as a young person. And being a part of a boy band fandom just made it worse. um, and like One Direction, no, sorry, Jonas Brothers was like the first stage of that, of like the YouTube videos and like the quoting their videos on Facebook to my friends all over the place. Nobody understood me. No one understood me. Um, and then One Direction came around, and oh my god, they should have locked me up. Like I belonged in a cage, dude. But I just have like, when I look back on those videos now, which I have in the past few days just because I want to relive it like everybody else, I'm just like, wow. I remember like coming home after school and immediately opening my laptop and just like a routine, just going through the playlist of their videos. And every time they'd post a new video, I would be there like as soon as it came out. When What Makes You Beautiful came out, I was watching the premiere of that music video and just in awe of like, it was just, I can't even describe it, y'all. And it sounds so stupid because it's like, it's just a boy band. They were just like a teenage boy band. But like, you have to consider where I was in age and just like, oh, I don't know, man. It was a time. How do I explain? And yeah, if you're not a girl, I don't think that you'll understand. Or if you're not like feminine, then maybe you won't understand. I don't know, but like especially if you weren't a teenage girl when One Direction came out, you just don't get it. I'm sorry. I hate that there's such like a sort of shameful feeling. You know what I've been confronting the past few days is like, I want to like post about One Direction and, you know, remembering what Liam contributed to that group. And there's been a sliver of just like, ooh, cringe, oh, shame, should I post this? Because there are people following me that are not into boy bands at all, right? Like I know that they see that and they're just like, it's weird. Like, why you're almost 30 years old. Why are you posting about One Direction? Like, oh, you're a One Direction fan, didn't know that about you. Unfollow. You know what I mean? There's such a shame that comes with it now because I'm not a teenager. I didn't have, because believe me, I didn't have any shame when I was a teenager. People were going to know that I was into One Direction and the Jonas Brothers. I didn't care what people thought. I was the freak who was a One Direction fan and a Jonas Brothers fan. Didn't care at all. But now that I'm, 30, I still don't really care, but there is that like voice in the back of my head that's like, oh, people are going to think this is really cringe if you post this One Direction song or if you post that picture of you at the One Direction concert. And I just wish that it wasn't that way. And I've seen that discourse on TikTok a lot the past few days where it's just like, they're not just a boy band, like you might think they're just a boy band. They're not just a boy band. And even that, like coming out of my mouth like that, I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird to say, but it's just true. I mean, think of any band that you are a part of, like the fandom, right? That might be weird to some people, but to you, it means everything because of the connection that you have with that band or with that artist. And there's no shame. There's no shame in loving what you love and having a connection with something, no matter what it is. Of course, as long as it's not like illegal or as long as it doesn't hurt people. But like a band or an actor or, K-pop group, K-pop is like the new sort of like stan culture where some people look at it and they're just like, ugh, you're one of those people. But this means so much to people. And, Like for me, I love Blackpink. I'm a ride or die for the Blackpink girls. Everything they do, I'm eating it up, right? But I think the boy band thing has a sort of negative connotation because when boy bands were like super hot, there was that sort of cringe connotation where it's like they're passing out at the concerts, which I saw just like 5 or 6 years ago at the Jonas Brothers concert. Like people were still passing out. Was that One Direction? No, it was One Direction. Sorry, it was One Direction concert. People were still passing out like 6 years ago. But that's like the connotation, right? It's like hysteria. These girls are nuts. They're crazy because they can't control themselves, and they're hyper fixating on these people that have no idea they exist. And that's just how it is with every celebrity, though. Like every actor that you admire, every artist that you admire, they probably won't know that you ever exist. But when they pass, you feel pain. You mourn them because they meant something to you. And that's definitely how I'm feeling this week. I think that a lot of us, especially those of us who are in our 20s and early 30s or mid to late 30s, I think a lot of us are grieving our childhoods constantly. We grew up in a really cool time, a really magical time. I've been really looking back at just the early 2000s and all the stuff that I grew up with, all the restaurants and like all the branding that we had, and just mourning it, dude. You look at all of the modern bland marketing and we have just lost the magic. And I've talked about this on the podcast before, but like I feel like nothing when I go into a Target or even a Walmart or when I go to the mall. I don't feel the magic. I feel dead, and that's a little extreme to say. But you can, if you're wondering what the state of the world is, just go to a store. Just go to your favorite store, like Target. Think about how it used to be when you were a kid and go into it now. Everyone that works there hates their lives. They've gotten rid of all the warmth. Everything is just Elon Musk-ified. Everything is Tesla-fied, where it's just soulless and robotic, and there's no color, there's no warmth. Toys R Us is gone. Blockbuster's gone. We don't have experiences anymore. We just have 2-day shipping. Not even, because it's not even 2-day shipping anymore. It takes like 4 days. But we've just lost so much of the magic that we had as children. And I think when we lose somebody like Liam Payne, it's like a reminder. It's kind of like a gut punch where it's like, oh, remember this thing that made you really happy as a preteen and a teenager? Yeah, a piece of that's dead. It's been tough, It's been a tough year ever since COVID, especially, the state of America in particular. Depressing. And so when we feel losses like this, it really reminds us like we need to cling to the magic and we need to be more in tune with our inner child. And that's why I collect Barbie stuff and Disney stuff, because when I feel it in my hands and I see it on my shelf, I feel happy because it's like bringing the magic of my childhood back into my life. Even though I'm almost 30 years old, I'm bringing it back into my life because I at least have control over that. I can't control how society goes, but I can control what I surround myself with. And I hope that everybody out there will do that for themselves more, because you would be amazed at what a Lisa Frank binder will do for you, But all of this to say, if you're hurting out there, if you are grieving the loss of a celebrity, of an artist, or just in general, just know that I am here for you and you're not alone. I'm also going through it. and check in on your friends. Check in on your friends and your family. Just ask them how they're doing, because people get really good at hiding what they're going through just to get through the day. I struggle with that myself. I don't want to be a burden to other people by being like, well, I cried like 3 times while working today because I just felt like I couldn't do it anymore. You know what I mean? That's a lot to put on someone. But you just asking, how are you doing? How are you coping with everything that's going on? Just send that message to somebody, and I guarantee you it will make their day better. But I love you guys, and if you listen to this whole thing, I really appreciate you. One last thing I wanted to say on sort of on that note. You know, when I started doing Twitch streaming, I did it because I wanted to create a community, and I wanted to connect with people all over the world, and if I could make someone's day better, then that was enough for me. It was never about the money, which I'm very grateful for, but it was never about the money. It was never about being a successful streamer. It was only about connecting with people and trying to make a difference in people's lives. And I can confidently say that there are so many people in this community. And now this is going to make me cry. Oh man. There are so many people in my Twitch community that if we lost them, I would be absolutely devastated. And I believe that the same would be true for them if something happened to me. And I just want to take a moment to say that I know that I'm not very active on here as much as I want to, because life and working and bills and money. But no, despite that, whenever I do show up, they show up. And I'm just so thankful for everyone that has come into my life through Twitch. And I love you guys. And I appreciate all of you. And send me a DM if you need a friend, because I'm always going to be there. Okay, that's it. I love you guys. See you in the next episode. Bye.